Welcome back to week number 3 of our series, Kiss the Wave, based on a quote from the famous English preacher Charles Spurgeon, who said, "I have learned to kiss the wave that throws me against the rock of ages." And there's a lot to digest in those words, but the basic idea is that it is possible somewhere and sometime to learn that in our times of pain and suffering that might feel like constant waves in an ocean, it's possible to welcome that because it leads us to the one thing that is stable in this world, God Himself. So, as we're walking through this story of Job, I'm praying that that will be the case for you. And I think a pretty good recap of the story so far is found in chapter 2 and verse 3 that says, "Then the Lord said to Satan, 'Have you considered my servant Job? No one else on earth is like him, a man of perfect integrity who fears God and turns away from evil. He still retains his integrity even though you incited me against him to destroy him for no good reason.'" Right? Job's story introduces us to a man who, by God's own admission, is blameless and upright. Those statements also highlight the fact that Job is suffering because of that conversation, really a cosmic wager between God and Satan. And in rapid succession, Job lost all his livestock, his servants, his wealth, his 10 kids on the same day, and then on top of that, he lost his health. And then starting at the end of chapter 2 and continuing through chapter 37, Job and his friends have a series of conversations about his suffering and why this is happening. Now, they seem to be halfway decent friends. They do some good things, like sit with him and in his misery just try to comfort him. And then they do and say some really terrible and misguiding things. We're actually going to take next week and talk about how you walk through pain and suffering with someone in your life. But in these conversations, Job's friends basically say, look, we know God is just, and we know everything happens for a reason. So the fact that you're suffering means there's a reason God's doing this to you. And then Job will push back, and he'll say, well, that's not true. I'm not saying I'm perfect, but I'm innocent of anything that would warrant this. And then his friends would double down and hold the line. Look, Job, there has to be something. God's just. Everything happens for a reason. So think hard, like, what is it? And this goes on for 35 chapters of the story as they try to figure out why Job is experiencing all of these terrible things. Now, questioning your life or questioning how the world works or even questioning what God can or cannot do, I don't think that's necessarily a problem. So you probably have had the same experience, right? When we're in maybe a pain or a season of suffering, it's easy to settle into questions like why this or why me or why can't God? What I want you to see is that in their search for answers, they form some very bad ideas on Job, the world, and God. And the danger of making faulty assumptions is that we would then have faulty beliefs that would turn into faulty actions. See, our assumptions about God will ultimately affect how we view God. Now, I spent the majority of my teaching around 4 assumptions that Job and his friends make. And I'm not going to repeat them here, but they will make for engaging and thought-provoking conversation. I'm going to leave this one hanging for you because you're going to have to work it out in your group and for yourself. But I will point out one of the most fascinating statements in the entire story, right? In the midst of hypothesizing about all of the things in this world that they do not understand, Job makes a statement saying, there is something I do actually know. He says, but I know that my Redeemer lives, and at the end he will stand on the dust. Even after my skin has been destroyed, yet I will see God in my flesh. I will see Him myself. My eyes will look at Him, not as a stranger. My heart longs within me.